My name is Kin, and that's no moon. It's my gigantic Super Star Destroyer power plant built in Satisfactory. I'm going to show you my progress, provide the details on how much oil it will process, how it fits into the overall design of my save, and what my future plans are with this playthrough. Building a free-floating Star Destroyer as a power plant has been something that I've wanted to do for a long time. In fact, I built one in my very first playthrough. As you can see, the first one I built is just a regular Star Destroyer, and I used it as a turbo fuel power plant. But now that we're working on this beast, I wanted to make a playthrough for my YouTube channel that had an Empire theme throughout. So, while this Super Star Destroyer that we're finally getting to after almost a year of playtime is the main centerpiece, all of my mega factories are Empire themed. That includes the very first mega factory I built in this playthrough, which is the water packaging plant designed to look like the Scarif Tower. We'll talk more about the Scarif Tower as well as the Senate building, which is our oil packaging plant, a little bit later. Now that it was finally time to put my favorite ship in Star Wars into Satisfactory and make it a useful working power plant, I had to decide on what I was gonna exactly model it off of, because to be honest with you, there's quite a few different variations. And if you aren't familiar, this is the ship that first shows up in Empire Strikes Back and then crashes into the Death Star at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's called the Executor or the Super Star Destroyer. Now there's lots of pictures, there's lots of depictions of it, but I ended up picking this blueprint. And then one of my channel members actually helped me out and put it on this grid, lined everything up just right, and it really was a good asset when I was trying to figure out how to design this thing. As I was live streaming and walking through everything with my viewers, I not only had my picture up here in Paint where I could draw and point to different things, I also had a printed version. And what I ended up doing is I would measure the printed version with a ruler, and then I would transcribe that to in-game with a ratio of millimeters that I measured with my ruler to foundations in the game. Now, the other item that we really worked hard to get were these angles. And I can actually show you the marked up version that I ended up using to get this design in place. And here are a lot of the leftover angles and drawings that I put together while I was designing this during my live streams. This Star Destroyer was designed in-game live, which, came with some trial and error, but I think it turned out pretty well. Now, the major tools that I used in order to get these angles really comes down to one really important tool, and that is the painted beam in freeform mode. So with the painted beam in freeform mode, I can use it to both make custom angles as well as connect two pieces that I already have built together in a straight line. Now, along with these custom angles, I also built some blueprints that I used to great effect in order to build out this giant structure relatively quickly. Other tricks I used besides blueprints and the painted beam angles was, of course, nudging. In-game, this Super Star Destroyer measures about 3,500 meters or so. And that's in-game meters. Now, as you can see here, we have our outer shell complete. We have some drones lining the edge of the main center superstructure, and I'll talk more about those drones a little bit later. And we have down at the end, of course, our tower and our bridge and our shield generators. Now inside, I've begun to build out the factory area. Now this is going to be the area that we can actually use to build our power plant, our refineries, our packagers, our unpackagers, and of course our fuel gens. Now this bay down here in the center and the bottom is going to be used for our initial inputs. We're going to have trains coming in here, and the trains are going to flow in, and those are going to provide us our packaged oil and water. And I'm going to line the front of this Super Star Destroyer with those train stations. Along the main belly on the inside here is going to be the majority of our buildings. That's going to include our refineries and our packagers and unpackagers. And we've got a lot of space here, and I've been really trying to, as I put this together, really think about maximizing the space, because even though this Super Star Destroyer is enormous, a lot of it is really hard to use space. These edges, these corners here out on the end, they're not very tall, and it's really hard to use that efficiently. So I tried to make sure as I put this together that we had as much usable space as possible. And that includes this giant section back here, which on the blueprints, of course, are where the engines are held, but I expanded this just a little bit from the design so that we could have as much space possible to get done whatever it is we need to get done. And last thing I really want to show you on the back end here is what this looks like from the outside. So I've gone with a texture differential. So anything that's part of the hull, the shell, that's a smooth texture, either a roof, top, like the top, or a concrete foundation, like the bottom shell. And anything that is more of this rough texture, I went with either the underside of a roof or these metal walls. Now, there is supposed to be a bunch of engines back here. I may get to them and may not. There is really a balance that I'm trying to make between the cosmetics time that I put in on this, as well as the functional time. And I really do want to try to get this entire playthrough finished up before 1.0 launches. So now that we've had a brief tour of the Superstar Destroyer itself, I do want to talk about numbers. How much oil am I taking in? How many buildings are we going to build? How many fuel generators is it going to power? All that good stuff. And so for my factory planning tool, I've used satisfactorytools.com. Here I've got my fuel factory broken down. Now, I do have multiple plastics and multiple petroleum cokes and rubbers there as outputs because they're going to be doing different jobs, and I found it easier to just break it out in that way. And then I maximize whatever fuel is left. Now, the plan is to use 100% of the oil available to us on the map. I'm already using 1200 in the starter base power, basically all the power that I've been using in my save thus far. So that leaves 10,500 oil remaining. And with that 10,500 oil, we are going to be able to make almost 10,000 plastic per minute, 2,700 rubber per minute, 5,700 petroleum coke per minute, and 15,000 fuel per minute. Now, again, we're inputting packaged oil and packaged water, 10,500 packaged oil and 31,200 packaged water per minute in order for us to make this work. And I will be using the diluted packaged fuel recipe. Now, there is a specific reason that I'm using packaged water and packaged fuel and not using the blender diluted fuel recipe. And I'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. But this is the basic breakdown of what is going to be going in that factory. Now, taking a look at the buildings, in order to build this out, we're going to need 638 packagers and almost 1,300 refineries. In addition to that, I've also calculated out how many fuel generators we're going to need in order to handle that 15,000 fuel per minute. And that is going to come to roughly 1,300 fuel generators without any overclocking. And so the plan is going to be to take those fuel generators and line this whole area inside in the center of the ship with the fuel generators. And I've got this broken down into various levels, and then I may also increase or decrease the fuel generators up and down in order to give us the feel that we're looking for the Star Destroyer. But the goal is that this center section, this sort of diamond center section, all the way from the back there, all the way to the front, is going to be all fuel generators. And if I can't fit 1,300, then I will overclock, because if I did overclock them all, I would only need 500, and I'm sure 500 will fit. And if I have to, I'll use the advanced game settings to cheat in some extra power shards so we can make that happen. Let's talk more about that packaged water and packaged fuel and why I'm doing it. Now, the ultimate goal for this project is for it to be completely untethered, except for one power line, to the rest of my world. And I don't want any ugly train lines going to it. I don't want any pipes or belts. What I want, the free floating Superstar Destroyer off the coast. And in order to do that, that means drones. And if we're gonna drone a liquid, that's why we're packaging it. Now, I don't have the power right now to make the batteries and run the drone ports in order to make more power. And so that's why we have these trains set up at the top of the Senate building. And our first phase of construction for the Super Star Destroyer is going to be half the oil and half the water, and we're going to sky train it over into the bay that I showed you earlier, and we're going to get half of this beast turned on. That's going to be phase 1. Once we finish phase 1 and we have half of our power available to us and a good chunk of our plastic and our rubber, then we're going to work on our battery factory. And the plan with the battery factory is max batteries available to us on the save with all the sulfur and all of the bauxite available to us on the map. And those batteries per minute should come in at around 4,200 batteries per minute. Is that going to be too much? Is that going to be not enough? Well, I'm not sure, but I'm going to make the most that I possibly can make. Now, I do want to talk more about the factories that are producing all of these items. As I told you, my theme is the Empire, it's Star Wars, it's mega factories, and the first factory that I built after my starter factory is the Imperial Scarif Tower from the movie Rogue One. Now, I built that off the Gold Coast, and as you can see, I used quite a few water pumps in order to get us to 31,200 packaged water per minute. We're looking at 260 water extractors total and 520 packagers. That gets loaded into 4 train stations that have 10 cars apiece. I think this would be a good time to actually break down my map. I've showed you the Super Star Destroyer here, and the Senate building here, and then my starter base was right here. And then, of course, I just talked about the Scarif Tower out on the Gold Coast here, packaging all our water. Now, what the trains do, these black lines are train lines put in, and the trains take the water all the way up here, through here, up into the Senate building. And then for now, the Senate building, like I said, is going to take that water and it's going to train them over into the Super Star Destroyer. That covers the water portion of this. Let's talk a little bit about the oil. These train lines were put in very strategically because the train line does double duty. I built a blueprint. Not only does it provide 2 two-way trains, so 4 rails total, but it also conveys pipe work as well as belt work in the line itself. And so that's why we have this set of train lines throughout the map in order to route all the oil all the way up to the Senate building and into the packagers of the Senate building. Now, these packagers I've designed to look exactly like the Senate in Star Wars, both outside and in, although it is fair to say that perhaps the outside looks more like a mushroom than the Senate building, but I only have so many angles available to me in Satisfactory. I think it looks pretty good. The inside, though, I'm really happy with. This really came together. I'm using each of these Senate pods. There's 2 packagers in each one, and the oil is sitting in these ready to be turned on. It's ready to go. I have the empty canisters ready to turn on. The only thing I need in order to turn this on and the water packagers down at the Scarif base is a place for this to go. And that's what we're working on. That's what this is for. We need a place for this packaged water and packaged oil to go and be used so we can get the canisters back and continue the cycle. And until we have a place for it to be used, there's nothing really that we can do with 2 entire factories that we built. Nothing's running yet. Not until this beast gets turned on. Now, once phase 1 is done, and the power is on, we're going to build a battery factory that resembles the Jedi Temple. Like I said, it's going to have max batteries, all the sulfur, all the bauxite on the map, and then just like the water, we're going to train the batteries up through this train line and deliver it to the Senate building. Now, once that Jedi Temple is put in place and built, we'll take the unused portions of the packaged water and the packaged oil, and we'll set up a drone system on the roof here. And we will test how well my computer can handle that many drones delivering packaged oil and packaged water. That's where these drone ports come in on the top edges of this inside triangle. because first of all, they need to be outside so that the drones can get to them easily, but I also wanted to use them as part of the decoration and part of the look of the overall feel of the Super Star Destroyer. And I think it's gonna work really, really well with all the drones landing right in and in amongst the fuel generators that are gonna be built between them. If my computer can handle the second half of the oil and the water being droned over, and it's not crashing and I haven't let's gamed it out my computer into oblivion, then I will tear down and replace the temporary SkyTrain setup that we have and deliver both halves of packaged water and packaged oil via drone over to our Super Star Destroyer. And it will have everything turned on and we'll have all the power we can possibly need the rest of the save. And once phase 2 is done from the Super Star Destroyer and the battery factory is done, it will be time for our final mega factory of the save, and that will be a giant free floating Death Star that also will have all of its inputs droned to it in order to create our final endgame space elevator part production. That's the plan for this save. Now, if you're new to my channel and this is the first video you've seen of mine, or if you haven't seen any of my videos in quite some time, I am making less videos, but I am live streaming more because I've really got to push in order to try to get this save done before 1.0 comes out. And so I'm live streaming 3 nights a week, Tuesday nights, Friday nights, and Saturday nights, PST. That's 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and Saturday nights, and I start 10 p.m. on Friday nights, and I usually run anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. Now, I am simulcasting on both Twitch and YouTube at this time, so you can catch me on either platform. I know that not everybody has time to sit down and watch an 8-hour live stream. I totally understand that, and that's why I wanted to try to make these videos to give you guys an update on what it looks like and how it's going. And that way you don't have to spend an entire day's worth of time watching. Every time I reach a major milestone and get me, phase 1 hooked up, I can give you guys an update, show you guys what it looks like. And so if that's an interest to you and you enjoyed this video, just let me know in the comments. If these videos help you, then I'll make more. Hopefully, if everything goes well, I can get through my plans for this save without crashing my computer, and hopefully, maybe before 1.0 comes out. That's the plan, and I'm gonna work as hard as I can to get it done. Again, thanks a lot, really appreciate it, and I'll either see you in the next live stream or I'll see you on Discord.